Hello, hello, hello. Well, we're coming off a super crazy weekend of college football, and unfortunately, the rankings don't come out until later tonight. So,
You get us first.
yeah, and our thoughts and opinions on what they should be, which is even better. But we did have a few Twitter questions and text and phone calls, emails, so many emails.
Yeah. DMs, Skype,
So the
FaceTime.
first question would be a super important person to me, my sister. She wants to know our thoughts on Jarrett Stidham and his season and where he might lead Auburn in the next two seasons coming. So obviously, if you watched football this past weekend, you saw Auburn have an absolute whooping up on number one Georgia.
Yes, they did.
And Jarrett Stidham was at the helm of that and conducted his team in a very senior-like manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's awesome foreshadowing to what he could do this next two seasons, if he stays two more seasons. And yeah, I mean, I think there's everything positive coming off of a win like that. And I'm excited to see what else he can do for the rest of the season. Since they still have to play Alabama, he can definitely showcase himself some more.
I like Jarrett Stidham. The thing about I don't know how many people that they are graduating. I don't know how old this group is. They're playing like a veteran team, like you mentioned. Jarrett Stidham is a phenomenal quarterback. It's a reason why he fit pretty well with Baylor's system prior to Matt Rule. He is one of the best quarterbacks. Cliff Kingsbury wanted him out of high school, so obviously a talented guy. We didn't really know how he would fit in the Auburn's that run style quarterback system that Gus Malzahn has, but he's really been playing really well. And if he continues to do what he did this past weekend, not turn over the ball, move the ball up and down, make some big throws, and have some of those receivers make some big plays for him on the back end, I think that he can absolutely move himself up in the Heisman race this year.
Yeah.
But his future is very, very bright for the Auburn Tigers because I think they understand that he can throw the ball down the field, and that gives them some things that Nick Marshall and some of those other quarterbacks couldn't do.
Yeah.
And that makes him a little bit more versatile. And not saying he's Cam Newton, but Cam Newton could stretch the field with his arm as well.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues for Auburn moving ahead is in Auburn's two losses, Stidham was sacked for a total of 14 times. So giving him that protection will only further showcase his talents and able to drop dimes.
Well, yeah, he's dropping dimes for sure. Another question we got from Twitterverse is, what's the likelihood of the Sooners making the playoffs? If the playoffs were today, it would be 100% likelihood.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we still have 2 more weeks of football and the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma is in the driver's seat, so they can actually lose this weekend and still be in the driver's seat, but they have to beat TCU. And obviously, if they lose this weekend, they're not in the playoffs. But they have to win out. They don't play anyone the next 2 weeks. I guess they play West Virginia, but their game's at home. It's going to mean a lot. Baker Mayfield knows he needs to go 2-0 the next 2 weeks, find a way to beat whoever, most likely TCU, unless TCU trips up in Lubbock this weekend or against Baylor at home next weekend. But I think Oklahoma is a shoe-in. It's going to be hard to beat a team twice, especially look like TCU kind of is like, hey, we know we're going to play y'all again in a couple weeks, so we don't mind the beating. Yeah. And it seemed like they kind of just lost a lot of fire. Yeah. But when it's come down to that Big 12 championship, I expect TCU defense to play a little bit better. And that's going to be tough beating a team twice in the same year, especially within a month of each other. But as far as Baker Mayfield's chance to win the Heisman, he's the Heisman front runner. No one really I know Lamar Jackson sneaking back up in there, but his team is garbage. Jarrett Stidham, Saquon Barkley, Bryce Love, they're all having really, really good years. But when it comes down to it and you're just putting resumes next to each other, Baker Mayfield's resume is in this VIP box, and everyone else is like shred box.
Everyone else has been very muted these past few weeks as well.
Especially against good teams.
Yeah.
I mean, Saquon Barkley, he had, he was leading the country in all kinds of things, and he's just, he's not. People have figured out how to stop Penn State, and it's through Saquon Barkley. And Notre Dame had a good running back in Josh Adams, and he only had 40 yards of rushing against Miami last week. Last question is, who will start QB for Baylor next year? Definitely Charlie Brewer. We have seen that what he can do at the helm of our offenses, of the Baylor offense, is really amazing. Wins and loss for next year. I'm going 7-5, 8-4. You think we win more?
I think the amount of injuries that we've seen this week, like we have talked about,
it's going to linger on.
Yeah.
I get it. Seth, John, how many wins we're going to have next week?
Please hold. Next year.
Next year.
6. They said 6.
Give me 5.
6-5.
6-5. Well, 5 wins or 6 wins, so not 6-5. Because obviously there's 12 games unless something happens in Waco and we forfeit the game. But anyways, and then the most improved group, offensive line to get better, receivers to get back healthy, and they'll start catching ball. I think the most improved group for what we want to do as a football team, or Baylor wants to do, is that safety position has to be the most improved position on the field because it has a lot of stress points the way Phil Snow wants to play defense. But let's not talk about that. Neither here nor there. It's a long way away. We still got 2 weeks to go. And Charlie Brewer's going to be our quarterback. We need to go 2-0, and we also need to improve and not turning over the ball.
Yeah.
So what we got?
Your top 4 for the rankings that come out tonight.
A little different than yours?
Yeah. So I've got Alabama, Clemson, Miami, and OU in that order.
Mm-hmm. So we got the same exact top 4.
Same teams, different order.
Okay, my order is Miami number 1, OU's number 2, Alabama's number 3, Clemson is number 4.
Yeah.
Clemson is one of those teams like no one's really lost track of them, but they really haven't had any big games. They went up to NC State a couple weeks ago. It was a closer game than expected. They beat NC State. And then they don't play anyone this week. Yeah. And Alabama hasn't really played anyone but LSU when they played LSU a few weeks ago, and then they beat Mississippi State. OU goes to Columbus, Ohio, beats Ohio State, invites TCU to the house, beats TCU, goes to Stillwater, beats Oklahoma State, and Miami just put a thumping on Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I think those 2 teams last week, if you're watching all 4 games of these 4 teams in the top 4, it's clear as mud that Miami and OU are the 2 best teams in the nation.
So not clear.
It's clear as mud. I mean, obviously there's a lot of different factors in it, but Miami and OU played extremely well.
For the eye test, that is your ranking.
Alabama, they're going to be in there.
I just don't see the playoff committee letting OU jump Alabama and Clemson.
They should look at the freaking resume of the body of work and say that.
Well, and I could totally be wrong. I never thought they would put Georgia above Alabama, and they did. So.
Well, Georgia had a better win than Notre Dame being at number 3. Obviously, that all fizzled out. Miami is the one that is probably not going to be able to jump from 7 last week to number 1. But what they did with that defense and how they were able to literally shut down Wimbush, who had, I don't know, what did he have? He had three interceptions, two interceptions, 1 fumble. He threw for 119 yards. So he wasn't moving the ball very well. Backup quarterback Book had 1 interception. And then obviously we talked about the big home run play, and Josh Adams was only held to 40 yards. But I like Miami. Miami probably doesn't jump to number 1 from number 7, to be honest. In my book,
that performance was
number 1,
commanding enough to be,
Yeah,
to validate that position.
I think Oklahoma could be ranked number 1 though.
Really?
Look, they are dominating.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't play good against.
I think their lack of defense as an entirety would keep them out of it, though.
Ask TC, you want to ask TCU how their lack of defense worked out for them? But honestly, there's not really any big games to talk about this week.
Yeah, this week is kind of a funny week. Last week, I feel like there were so many games on that I couldn't pick which channel I should be on.
I mean, I was watching on the iPad, iPhone. I didn't.
TV.
Man.
We've got Clemson versus Citadel. We've got Miami and Virginia, Georgia and Kentucky, Notre Dame versus Navy, Ohio State versus Illinois, Washington versus Utah. And then Auburn is playing Northern.
I thought Auburn was playing Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah, Louisiana.
Georgia's playing Kentucky. You might have already said that. And then Alabama's playing Mercer or Mercer. Yeah, I think I put my notes.
The biggest game of the week, the 2 ranked teams playing this week, would be Wisconsin and Michigan, which will be a huge matchup for Wisconsin because obviously this will be their first legitimate big test. However, the ESPN chance victory thing has them at 78.3% chance of victory.
It's a lot bigger chance of victory than Citadel over Clemson, which has a 0.3% chance of victory. So there won't be any upset in Clemson for the Clemson Tigers this weekend. So going into this weekend, the top 7 teams who we have is Alabama in whatever order. Alabama, Oklahoma, Miami, Clemson, Wisconsin, Auburn, and Georgia are playing teams that are a combined 36 and 34 this week.
Yeah.
It is not looking good for a team.
The unranked teams.
Yeah. There are going to be a lot of probably injuries, but depends on what time.
I think it's a good week, though, to rest starters and heading into championship games, hopefully in the latter half of the season.
No.
You know, it's a
Forget
good week.
rest starters. I think you got to go play.
You play maybe at half.
If it's a close game, you play 4 quarters. And that's the thing is that most of these guys are taking mental lapses, and that's when, Alabama always plays a team, and they're at halftime. It's 3-0 against Mercer, and next thing you know, end of the game is 48-0.
Right.
But they always play around with these teams, and obviously I don't think Mercer has the talent to keep up with Alabama for 4 quarters. Not when Nick Saban just says, hey, we're going to run the ball and hand it off to our 32-year-old running backs. They're not going to stop them. But, Alabama definitely does need this week to figure out what's going on defense because what that defense gave up last week to Mississippi State, the core of Alabama's defenses are strong, really, really good linebackers.
Yeah.
Making plays, stuffing the runs. I mean, you just look at how well they play Fournette and, Geis and all these different running backs they face all year long. They shut them down with their running backs.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State was able to move the ball up and down the field, had a chance to win it late.
Yeah.
Alabama missed a field goal, which they always do. I don't know why they can't get a good field goal kicker. You're paying the running back. Why not pay the kicker? And then
well, Alabama's down 4 of its 6 starting linebackers since preseason. And if I'm Auburn, I'm saying, heck yeah, bring it on.
Well, yeah, and Auburn's running back had a really, really good game against Georgia. I don't think Georgia had allowed 100 yards to any running back all year. And then next thing you know, Auburn's running back goes for, I think, 233 all-purpose yards on the game. Kerryon Johnson, I mean, he's over 1,000 yards this year. Only has 5 TDs, but he's been able to move the ball, get first downs for the Auburn Tigers. And, what hurts Auburn is they lost to freaking LSU. Yeah. Up on these boys and then let it go. And I think that's going to, kick these guys in the butt later on. But if they win out, I don't see the committee not putting them in the playoffs, even though they have 2 losses. They're going to be a lot better than 2-loss Ohio State, in my opinion. But, that's just me. Oklahoma doesn't play anyone this week. They go to Kansas, which should be a game at kickoff, and then shortly after kickoff, it will not be a game. Baker Mayfield and Rodney Anderson gave the vaulted TCU defense fits last week, and it was not fun for the TCU Horned Frogs. Miami hosts Virginia. They thumped Notre Dame last week. They'll probably thump Virginia. The thing is, I like about it, I wasn't at the game, and you could hear it when you were watching it. They said the stadium gets louder for after a turnover than they do after a touchdown.
Really?
And that turnover chain, like you talking about building swag, and it's all about the cool people. I mean, Mark Richt probably is the most humble person I've ever met. I've never met him. I don't know why I said that. But seen in the interview, he's always like, when they're undefeated and they're going to play Alabama in the SEC championship game, he's like, we still got some work, things to work on. He's all humble and, he's feeling the swag in Miami because after the game, he's talking about the turnover chain. He's like, everyone has, celebration. I just think ours is the best. I mean, he's not that type of guy, but you can tell like the Miami. I'm sure he's down there salsa dancing with all the Cubans and smoking Cuban good cigars. But that Miami turnover chain, that defense is rallying. It makes you want to make plays. Yeah. And when you have an incentive, what I've learned in finance class or finance, depending on how you say it, is incentives matter. Who says finance? Most finance professors say finance. Oh. They say finance is not how you say it, and you shouldn't go to like Wall Street and say.
Well, I never took a business class. Clearly.
Yeah, clearly. Well, I barely passed that class, so I got out of there passing finance. But anyways, Wisconsin got another big test. They beat Iowa last week, and that was the only ranked opponent they played all year. Yeah. And so this is another big test, hosting 8-2 Michigan. They got to get after them. I think Wisconsin wins this game.
The thing that concerns me, obviously, Michigan's defense, but then Wisconsin has given up 19 turnovers. They had 4 against Iowa last week. They've got to do a better job of handling the football and protecting it.
For sure. Auburn hosts Louisiana Monroe. They're 4-5. Duh. Georgia's dubbing Kentucky. And then we get back into our Big 12 play where games really, really matter. And we're trying to figure out who's going to play in the Big 12 championship game. And I think it's going to be TCU and Oklahoma. Yeah. And Oklahoma State is hoping that Texas Tech, Coach Bro, gets it going, and he got the cool comb over or comb back, whatever he has. I don't have hair, so I don't know the anatomy of it. But he hoping that Texas Tech gets after TCU. And the way that Oklahoma's offense was able to move the ball up and down the field. Texas Tech has a really talented running back in Stockton, and he can do the same thing. He's not as big as Rodney Anderson, but he is versatile. He can make plays in space, and it'll be interesting to see that game. They're going to love it.
Yeah. And Darius Anderson is out. Yeah. Most likely for the season. So.
Yeah. Oh.
He has the most touchdowns on their team. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of hole that really digs in for TCU's offense.
Well, and I read today that Gary Patterson, Texas Tech is known for throwing tortillas at people. Gary Patterson said last time he went to Texas Tech, he got hit with a frozen water bottle. So. Probably because they saw him sweating, because he does sweat a lot. Yeah. And they probably wanted to cool him down, so why not hit him with a frozen bottle?
Very kind of you, right?
Here's some water to cool out. Just rub this on your forehead, and you'll be all right. But I honestly think TCU wins this game. Texas Tech has a really good offense. They were very, very efficient. Didn't have to move the ball up and down the field on Baylor last week because Baylor handed them a bunch of turnovers. But this should be a good game to watch. It is definitely an upset alert to start because it's tough to win in Lubbock. Yeah. But I think TCU wins.
Yeah. We've also got OU at Kansas, which we touched on. Good week to rest your starters in that one for sure.
Yeah, I feel for Kansas. I don't get it. I read a tweet earlier this month They said 10 years ago Kansas was 11-1 or something.
Really?
I'm like, who do they have?
I don't remember Kansas ever being good.
I definitely don't remember it 10 years ago, but I was a senior in high school and Kansas was not on my list. Probably
because they sucked.
No, what if there was 11-1? I sucked for them. I couldn't. They probably stopped recruiting. They're like, oh, we don't need good guys anymore. We done it all. But yeah, Oklahoma wins this game in a landslide.
Yeah.
Kansas probably scored some points because Oklahoma really doesn't care. They know that they have a big test against West Virginia and that high-flying offense.
Yeah.
The end of the year, and then they come to Dallas, Texas, or Arlington, Texas, to play in very well.
Yeah. We got Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Oklahoma State fell behind 14-0 last week against Iowa State, and I was thinking, wow, here we go again. Iowa State is going to pull out another big upset, and I don't know if that'd be necessarily a huge upset, but
I mean, it would be, because if you start to, look at how the year started, you definitely didn't think Iowa State was going to have a chance, and if they were to knock off Oklahoma, TCU, and Oklahoma State, that's some big balling right there. Shot calling, 20-inch blades.
On the Impala.
Nice.
But Oklahoma State comes back out, they pull ahead, and they get the W.
Yeah. Aitman made a really, really good play at the back of the end zone, and then the officials helped Oklahoma State with 2 penalties that got them a little bit closer to convert on the 2-point conversion. Obviously, at the end of the game, they were able to score and take a victory back to Stillwater.
We've got Texas at West Virginia. Headed into Morgantown.
Morgantown.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard for Texas. And Texas is not running the ball well, and that's what you have to do well against West Virginia at West Virginia, and control the clock and keep that offense off the field. It's a reason why Seals and Greer and White are really good and dominating the Big 12. It's because they're really good at what they do. Texas doesn't win this game, and that's just all she wrote.
Then we've got Iowa State visiting Waco, Texas this weekend. The Bears taking on the Cyclones, and so touching on last week, Baylor had 4 turnovers, and Brewer fumbled twice and had an interception in the end zone. And these are just mistakes that cannot happen against a Iowa State team that's just as explosive as the offense that we've seen for Baylor in the past year.
Yeah, no, they're moving the ball up. They're very efficient. Montgomery is a really good running back for Iowa State. They scored 42 points on Oklahoma State. They're moving the ball up and down the field well. Their defense is playing really, really solid. You look how they played against second half against OU, TCU, and West Virginia. Yeah. West Virginia actually just jumped out in front of them 20-0, and they dug themselves a hole they couldn't get out of. I don't think they'll be able to move the ball efficiently against Baylor, because what Baylor and Phil Snow has done is like, we're going to take away the best thing you do, and we're going to make you be patient. And if they're patient and we don't go 3 down front, we're going to force them to run the ball, keep the ball on the ground. Right. Obviously, they got some tall receivers in Lazard, but this is a tough one. I got Iowa State edging as of today. Now, as we get closer to game time, more information comes out. That could change, but I definitely think Iowa State takes this victory, and it's tough. It's tough to say. I want Baylor to win. I got a bet on the table for Subway next week that Iowa State gets upset by Baylor. Well, there you go, John. I want the same sandwich next week, chicken teriyaki. Just so you know.
2 foot long next
week? 2 foot long. Yeah. Get one of those catering platters, the one with the long Subway sandwich. Let's talk about West Virginia and Texas, because Texas is 5-5. They go to West Virginia and then they host Texas Tech. Okay. Tom Herman needs to go to a bowl game. So what game is he most likely to win?
Texas Tech.
Really?
I don't think you win in Morgantown.
I guess. Seth, John, Sorry, I'm turning. I would turn over there, but they don't want to be on camera. You don't have to hold it up. You interviewing me? Texas 5-5. They play at West Virginia this week and at home against Texas Tech next week. They need to go to a bowl game this year. Which game is most likely that they win?
They win.
Yeah.
Texas Tech. The Nick Schumann can't get out of the pocket.
Texas Tech.
Nick Schumann is stuck
Everyone
in the
agrees
pocket.
with me.
They've got the secondary to play better against the receivers in their teams, and also they got a pretty good pass rush too. And Patty Mahomes isn't there to scream him out of trouble this year.
Man, we need to get Seth on the tube. He knows more
knows-
about football than I do. John, you gonna co-sign with that?
The West Virginia game is a goner for Texas. I think they'll have a shot, but I would not put it against. Texas Tech needs a win too to get to a bowl, and I think that Texas may back it and go home in that last game.
Yeah. Well, we definitely will see. I got Texas. If they win any game, it's against West Virginia because Texas has the best defense of secondary in the Big 12. And there you go.
And there you go.
And there you go.
Hey, come out to Three Nations Brewing. Next week will be our last normal week, at least. I don't know exactly what our weeks will be like heading into playoffs and all of that, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we just had a bunch of fans walk in, and I hope they're not getting kicked out just yet because they were about to bring the party in here, it looks like. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen after next week. Maybe we get to host like a whole ESPN crew or something. Or maybe I have to follow up on my bet and go to Subway and buy John a Subway sandwich. Listen, thank y'all so much for being with us this year, and it's been extremely fun. Caroline does most of the work, but she is definitely the better half of this show, and we really appreciate you watching. Oh, yeah, you know more football than anyone.
You're the knowledge.
No, you were teaching me about personnel earlier. I was watching the Ohio-Akron game, and you was like...
Yeah, that's 21 personnel.
Yeah, see? She knows it. Listen, thank y'all again, and anything else?
Nope.
All right. Sick and Bears. We'll see y'all next week.
Come
Take
green.
care.